I was reminded of the fact that yes, the people can rule, but they can only rule through legitimate institutions. So I think it's important to make that statement, and that also in order for us to sort of enhance our vision of what is going on in Ukraine at current. I would say that this has been a four-step crisis. It started out as a crisis of foreign policy and economic choice. Now, this crisis had been brewing for a long time within the gas energy sector, and it was sharpened in August 2013 when there was import restrictions to Russia from goods coming from Ukraine. So this economic crisis was, of course, accentuated when the government said, no, we're not going to sign the association agreement after all on 21st November. And this association agreement was not novel to the Ukrainian government, of course not. It had been negotiated for a long time and it had been ready since 2010. So the Ukrainian elite knew fairly much what this association agreement was all about. So the first stage, a crisis of foreign policy and economic policy. The second stage, a crisis of legitimacy. This was what the Evromaidan was all about. When people started rallying, they challenged the legitimacy of the government. And we recall that there was a vote of no confidence against the government already on 2nd December. And on January 28th, the government left. Azarov left, and since then Ukraine has had a de facto or a nominated prime minister, but not a government, functional government. So the crisis of legitimacy has lasted for a long time, and it has aggravated the political situation in institutions, and it has also hardened the protesters on the Evromaidan, or on the Maidan simply. And the third element in this crisis was a crisis of institutions. And this is a serious crisis, because this goes deep into the Ukrainian political system. As Alexander Tymchuk said in his opening statement, roundtables, negotiations, gradual institutional change, all of these are features in how the Ukrainian political system has worked since they voted against membership in Gorbachev's Union the 1st of December in 1991. Remind you that this Ukrainian vote was the death toll on the Soviet Union, and only 24 days after it ceased to exist as a political entity. So in this period, Ukrainian negotiations and political negotiations have stood center court, and hence the crisis of institutions is very severe. And the fourth, the crisis of question mark. And this is where we are at the current moment. There is a standoff in the middle of Kiev. Are there political negotiations going on? I don't know. Maybe there are political negotiations going on. But these also go to the core of the system on returning to the Constitution of 2004-2006 to have a better distribution of power between the Prime Minister and the President, to reduce presidential powers, which is essential for these negotiation processes, and whether or not to hold new elections before 2015 or not. These are all the stakes that the elite has to negotiate upon. And so far, well, I have been relatively pessimistic in my statements. I do hope there are negotiations going on. And I do also hope that what we're looking at here is not the time limit which is imposed by the draconic law of amnesty, which says that the protesters should demobilize before the police does. But because if this is the law that regulates what is going to happen in the next 14 days, well, it has a time limit. If the demonstrators are not down from the barricades within 50 days of adoption of the law, which was 1st February, I think, then the police has all powers to disperse the demonstrators. So before February 16th, there has to be some real progress in negotiations. There has to be some real changes. There has to be some sort of a roadmap that leads out of the situation. I guess I am approaching the end of my 7 minutes. And I would like to just launch one pet thought at the end of this talk, and that is, when President Clinton once said, "It's the economy, stupid," he was talking under different circumstances than now. This was in the mid-1990s. This was a period when European institutions were enlarging. This was a period where institutions, or it seemed like the European Union could do almost everything. Okay? But the validity of that argument is still among us. It's the economy, stupid. It is the economy of Ukraine that we're talking about. It is the need for Ukraine to have some prospects, long-term prospects, of how this economy is going to look. It is about the state budget deficit. It is about, of course, limiting the reach of the oligarchs and their control of the economy. It is about transparency in all relations in the state, but it is an economic argument. The economy of Ukraine has to improve, it has to be supported, there has to be some incentives from the European Union, and these incentives should be clear and should be given. Thank you.
Thank you, Geir, for that